Hey folks, it's me, Ranger, and I know it's been kind of a hot minute since I've uploaded here, but classes have started, so academics come first, you guys. But considering that my best friend has recently got this figure, and I happen to own it, and I got a little bit of time between this and some upcoming work. Yeah, I'm gonna do this review. So without further ado, we are of course reviewing one of my all-time favorite figures, if not my favorite figure in my collection. It is of course the Monsterarts Godzilla 2004. So yep, obviously from Godzilla Final Wars. So quick brief history of the film. So basically this Godzilla has been raiding the world ever since 1954, then got trapped inside some ice thanks to the Gotengo. Then some years later, he reawakened to battle the monsters invading the world because of the Exilians, and he definitely kicked the Shreyonk out of all the monsters in the movies. He obliterated Zilla, and Pale Kamakarus tosses around Kumonga, and then plays soccer with Rodan, Anguirus, and King Caesar. And then towards the end of the movie, he obliterates Ebra and Hedorah, and then battles against Monster X and Gigan, which, to be fair, they do put up a good fight against him, and Monster X was fairly strong compared to Godzilla, and Godzilla did kind of got his ass handed to him, but thankfully Mothra was around. And then later on, Mothra and Gigan, after they had their fit, it was all down to Godzilla and Monster X. Then of course Monster X turns into Kaiser Ghidorah and beats the crap out of Godzilla, and basically tries to drain all of his radiation. But then thanks to Ozaki, who basically did some energy transfer to Godzilla. That's when Godzilla gets all powerful, gets juiced up, if you will, and then kicks the crap out of Kaiser Ghidorah. So it's role reversal now, and almost knock out all of his heads and pretty much obliterates him into the sky with his red spiral heat ray. So yeah. And then towards the end, Godzilla, almost trying to kill the human characters, is then interrupted by his son Manila, who pleaded him to stop the war against himself and the humans. So thanks to Manila and the little kid that was with him, everyone calms down. They decide that it's not worth fighting each other, so Godzilla decides to leave towards the ocean, and Manila follows. So yep, that's the basic summary of the film. So with that being said, let's get on with the figure. So yeah, so Monsterarts Godzilla 2004. Honestly, it's still baffling to me that this figure even exists right now, because if you guys know me, you know that Final Wars is my favorite Godzilla movie. I know that it's very controversial. A lot of people don't like it. Some people do. But for me personally, I love the movie, and I love all the monster designs in them. I'm sure some of them aren't as good as other designs, but a lot of them are definitely up there for me, especially Godzilla himself. I mean, this Godzilla looks really, really fantastic, and I think they did a really good job representing him in Monsterarts form. Of course, sculpted by legendary sculptor Yuji Sakai, who does a lot of sculpting with Godzilla figures. And yeah, we'll get that little part till the articulation, but yeah. So before getting up closer, so I know that some people have had their opinions on this particular figure. Some love it, some are a little iffy about it, and there's quite a few that really don't like it. For me personally, I still really love this figure. Okay, I know that's predictable for me to say, this is my favorite Godzilla design, so of course it's gotta be my favorite. though I am gonna acknowledge, some of the flaws when it comes to this figure, because even though it's my favorite figure, I will admit that there are some things that could have been a little bit more better. But yeah, we're just gonna continue that throughout the review. So yeah, let's start off with the head. So the head looks really nice. They definitely captured the look of the final Goji suit really well. Like you can see the nice scaly details on the head. The eyebrows are nicely picked out. So one thing that I'm sure some of you may not know is that apparently, and I've actually just learned this from recent reviews on this guy, is that the final Goji head, and the screen got a little brighter, the final Goji head is actually somewhat asymmetrical, actually, because I believe this brow is a little bit more prominent than this one. So, yeah, and I'm not sure if it showed this on camera, but it does kind of look that this one is a little bit bigger. Not by a whole lot, though. Not by a whole lot, but just something to point out. And I believe this is a feature from the suit itself. So, yeah. Now, this is sort of an issue that some people have with certain productions of this figure, is that sometimes this eyebrow can look is a little bit too big on most figure. On mine it looks fine, but something to point out. So yeah, so of course we still got the nice scaly details. The ears are nicely picked out. Nice. Yep, of course we got the pointed ears. Again, more of the scoots and details all around. Of course, let's open the mouth. Mouth looks really good. Teeth are pretty good on my figure, I want to say. I know some people have complained that they're a little sloppy. On mine, they don't look too bad. Particularly the top row, they look pretty good. Bottom row are pretty decent. So I don't think mine really has too much of a sloppy issue. Although this one tooth may look a little bit too clunky. But it's only one tooth, and it doesn't really ruin the entire figure. The inside of the mouth is really interesting, as it's actually a really deeper purple like color, like a really brownish purple. Interesting design choice, but I think it does work and does make this figure a little bit more unique. Yeah, and of course, so what issues people have with the face? And what I mean by that is that, well, let's look at the eyes, and if I can zoom in. So yeah, so obviously the eyes on my figure, if I can put them, they do look slightly off angled somewhere. I think this eye looks a little iffy. And so, yeah, so obviously this Godzilla does sort of suffer the derp eye treatment, which, I will admit, it did. I didn't really necessarily notice it when I took it out of the box. Of course, I had to examine him up close right after, which of course you saw in my unboxing. But I don't think the eyes on mine are too bad. I've actually seen way worse photos of this guy's eyes, and it's one of the issues when buying Monsterarts. You can either have a good figure or a bad one. Thankfully, I got one of the good ones. But yeah. So the eyes on my figure, they look pretty fine to me. And in terms of their color, we got the nice orange colors of the irises, and of course the black pupils. It's really nicely done. This one looks a little, I'm not sure, but the eyes on this one look not as prominent as the other one. So something to point out for my figure, but it's not exactly a big deal breaker for me. So And the eyes themselves, whatever you position them. Oh, hold on. Hand fell off. Get that to your articulation. Yeah. So, in terms of the eyes, wherever you position them, the eyes still look pretty fine. And, they definitely, capture, Godzilla's more ferocious look in the film. And one thing I kind of noticed about certain 2004 Godzilla figures is that they don't exactly really capture certain angles from Godzilla from the movie. What I mean by that is that I specifically remember from Final Wars that, his eyebrows were a bit more bigger, and so it would be a little bit more difficult to see the irises sometimes, only when they're in a more bright up environment. Like, I know throughout the movie, his, you would need certain light conditions to see his eyes, but for the most part, his eyebrows are so big that you can barely notice, the eyes. So, yeah, and it does help in the movie to give Godzilla his more ferocious look. So this one doesn't really capture that look, but I mean, it kind of does depending where you put the shadows. But again, it's not necessarily a big deal. And there goes the hand again. Sorry about this, folks. Come on, you. Okay, there we are. But yeah, so yeah, I think I ramble on too much about the head. And one more thing before I continue is that there is sort of an issue on mine where this side of the lip is sort of in a more snarly position, but it's a little awkward, honestly. Like, this one tooth looks a little bit bigger than this one. And so yeah, so it does so I'm not sure if this is only on my figure, but it does sort of give the impression that Godzilla's snarling. But if that was the case for this one, I think Monsterarts could have done a little bit of a better job, just a little, or just don't give the snarl look to Godzilla at all, because immediately it does look a little awkward in mine, but no really big deal. But yeah, so yeah, I rambled on too much on the head, so we need to move on to the neck. Neck looks pretty good. Nice scaly details. Got nice scales along the sides. A bit more of a bumpy texture on the underside of the neck. Looks really nice in my opinion. And as you can see, got more scales going along. Shoulders are nicely picked out and scaly. Of course, they look really nice. The arms are really well sculpted. They're a bit more lean. Of course, this is one of the more prominent features about this Godzilla is, he's a bit more lean compared to other incarnations, which is, of course, in accommodation with the suit, since, the suit was lean so that Godzilla can do more acrobatics moves in the movie. But at the same time, they actually balanced out, how muscular he is, and they actually did a pretty good job on balancing, his more lean, his more lean design and his muscular details. So, yep, really nicely done. Of course, more scaly scoots all around, nicely done. The hands are nicely picked out, really, really nicely done. Yep, really big hands on this one. And, definitely helps give Godzilla his more ferocious nature. The claws are nicely painted. Their main color is a bony, creamy color, while they're washed with a golden finish to them. So really nicely picked out, honestly, and does give the claws, a bit more characteristics. I There is sort of an inconsistency. I think this claws on mine maybe a little bit brighter than this one. But again, it's not really exactly a big deal to me. I mean, you can barely notice them from afar, so not really a big deal for me. And I mean, it's not like I'm really, hating on the figure because I still love it. It's just, I'm just trying to be as objective as I can with this one. So yeah. So of course we got the nice ab area, really nicely picked out with more bumpy scales picked out, really nicely done. We got the waist area, really nicely done, more bumpy scaly details all around. Look at the underside of the arms, more scaly details picked out. Of course, we got the nice muscular legs. And again, really nice how the design balances out, how lean Godzilla is, and yet how muscular he is. So really nice details on the legs and showing how muscular he is, yet lean. Really nicely done here. So really nice muscle legs. Knees are nicely picked out. Then moving on, we still got more nicely detailed scoots picked out. Really, well, actually scales, I should say. The scales are nicely picked out. They're nicely done. The feet are nicely done. And mainly the feet on mine have sort of rubbed down already. It was because I'm mainly doing photography with this one, since, he is a big part of a certain crossover, which I will discuss later on. But yep, it's mainly these two toes that I mainly had to patch up with some paint, but the main paint is the same as the claws. Bony, creamy color for the base, and then some nice golden wash to give them a nice, more realistic approach to them. So they're nicely picked out. They're actually a bit more yellow than the claws, I think, even this one. But yeah, nice scaly, nice bony texture claws, definitely. Yep, really, really nicely textured toe claws for sure. You can sort of see the nice grooves and edges in them. As to the hand claws, sort of, though these are more polished actually. But yeah, so nicely details on the toe claws, like the rest of the figure, because we still got more scaly scoots, nicely picked out. And of course, now we're heading to the scoots at the tail. At the other side, more nice scaly details. It's a bit more leathery underneath with the underside of the tail, which is nicely picked out. Yep. Going towards the very little tip to the tail with this more, with the more scales, with the leathery texture. Of course, we got the scales on the sides, nicely picked out, very nicely done. Picked out scales, I do say so myself. And of course, let's get on to the scoots, the fins. Yes, the main is a special part of any Godzilla, and the final Goji scoots are nicely picked out here. Yep, so we can see, that the main color on these ones, on their base, it's the same charcoal black color as with the body, but as you can see, they go taper into a whitish cream, more brighter white as we get onto the tips of the scoots. Nicely picked out. And one thing I noticed, and one thing about the figure is that you can kind of see, if you can see, is that there are some noticeable blackish highlights on some of the fins. And at first I thought it wouldn't make the figure look a little scratched up, but looking at it over time, it actually does give the figure a bit more characteristic, and it enhances the details of the fins. So I think it works out pretty well. So nothing really too bad to complain about. Mainly it does still look just a little bit still scratchy, but yeah, I can see what that they were trying to do, and I think it works out fine. I mean, the fins themselves are still nicely detailed. We can still see, the nicely textured scoots in the middle. Well, actually scales, I should say, in the middle of the fins, nicely picked out. Got the smaller one right here with the more V shape here, nicely picked out. Now, of course, the fins, they get smaller. You can see, they taper off into the tail. The fins on the tail, of course, they don't necessarily have a whole lot of paint, and mostly goes into a more grayish color on the very tip once you continue down to the tail, which makes sense. The scoots on the tails are not necessarily big anyway, so no big deal, honestly. So yeah, so turns out the sculpt, I think Bandai definitely did a good job on capturing a Final Goji really well, I want to say. Now, I have heard that this figure isn't exactly accurate from what I've heard. I heard some people say that he may be a little bit too bulky around the hip area, though I think that's probably because of the articulation that goes into him. But of course, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But yeah, I think overall they captured this Godzilla fairly well. And just a little something on mine right now. Hold on, let me. Yeah. Actually, I might as well discuss one thing that kind of bothers me about the figure since we're reviewing him, and that is if I yeah. So one thing I kind of have issue with on mine is that this guy is is a bit of uh, little paint magnet, I want to say, because as you can see, he just got this annoying white speck here. It's not like the paint is scraping off. I think it just appeared there. So that because the thing is that mainly I'm a little OCD, and whenever I see something like that, it kind of gives me the urge to try to make this guy as clean as possible, honestly, because with me living with me having other figures, it's hard to to keep track of them on how clean they are 24/7. So yeah, so of course I'm gonna have to get rid of that after this review, but that's something to keep note of. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about, just the fact that he can kind of get a little annoying thoughts around him, and he isn't the only figure that I dealt with this issue. I believe I had to deal with the same thing with my 2014 Spitfire Godzilla, which I think I will compare later on. But yeah, but I think other than that, they definitely captured Final Goji's look really well. And like I said, it may not be 100% accurate, but I think he still works really well. Like, this is still, one of my favorite figures in my collection, as I said, in terms of, how he looks. And of course, with him being in a Monsterarts figure, we have to get into the articulation. So let's start off with the head. And this is probably Chriszilla. If you're watching this, Chris, pay attention to this part. Okay? Because I know you still got your figure and still getting used to him. Okay? So pay attention to this part. Alright, so moving on. So let's start off with the mouth. Can open and close. The mouth is on a ball joint, so yep, so you can get him in some pretty wacky positions with the mouth, but of course you want him more aligned, so you can move up and down. The head can move very high up. Yep, really far up. Yep, you can get him really far, so you can kind of recreate the scene where he is shooting his beam towards the Gorath planet. which was a pretty awesome scene nonetheless. But yeah, really far up. Of course, you can move him very far down. Of course, it does depend on, whether you want him to show many gaps on him. Because depending on the neck piece, since you can adjust the neck pieces. So, of course, you want to try to adjust the neck pieces to cover up any gaps. Of course, in this angle, you kind of go a little bit too far, but you can adjust it as so. You can get Godzilla in really expressive ways without showing too much issue with the gaps. But yeah. And there goes the head. So I think it's safe to say that one of the main issues with this Godzilla, he is pretty loose in some areas. As you can see, it was very easy for me to pop off the head. And this is not the only one that I have this issue with. I know plenty of other people that have loose joints with this one. And of course, you guys saw that this hand really likes to come off, but we'll get into that. So yeah, I'll point out some other loose joints that my figure has later on. So moving on, so of course we got the waist. You can twist it side to side. Very nicely done. Get him really looking far down. Yep. And can I get that spec out? No, okay. But yeah, let's just get this this waist back on. But yeah, this is how far you could turn the waist down. Really good waist articulation actually. So yeah, really far down with the waist. So moving on with the arms. Now there's a part where Chris kind of got issues, but I'm here to help out. So with the arms, and there goes the arms, but I can easily put that back in. But yeah, so the arms, they can go out this far, go in this far, so in and out like so. They can go 360. So, of course, you want to adjust, the ball. So, I'd say with Chris, since your figure are sort of in this position, you might want to hold your figure like this and then raise it up so that you can cover up the gap as much as possible. So, like so. So, just grab it in this area, then pull it up to cover up any gaps. So, yep. Then the elbows can move really this far. Yeah, you can almost get him Godzilla with some broken arms. Isn't that swell? But yeah, so yeah, really nice elbow joints, if I do say so myself. And then yep, more movement on the elbows, in and out. Yep, this one is a little squeaky on mine though. But yeah, now as you can see, the hand articulation. Yeah, my figures hand, particularly this one, really likes to come off. You can rotate it 360, and move in and out, of course, but yeah, you definitely need to be careful with, because like I said, I'm not the only one with this issue. Actually, Chris has a loose claw articulation. This one doesn't really have an issue falling off, but it's mainly this one, but still, so it's something you guys better keep that in mind. So continue down. Man, I hate that white speck. I'll fix that later on though. So moving on with the legs, and yep, too far, but can move them. Can you? Now, I thought you could rotate them 360, but you can't. So basically, you can rotate them in and out like so. So yep, in and out, leg articulation. They can go really far. Yep, really far the legs can go. Yep. Yep. So, and of course the knees, they can move in and out. Really nicely done. Knee articulation on both knees. This one's a little bit more tight, but no big whoop. This one moves with no issue. The feet can rotate 360 on ball joints, so can move them up and down. And of course, as you can see, 360. So, yep. So up and down with the feet. Then, of course, let's get on to the tail, the fun part of any SH Monsterarts figure. So the tail. The tail is really flexible, as you guys can see. Yeah, the tail is really fun to position until you get to the very teeny tiny tip, because the tip can pop off like the claw. So, yep. Yep, so the tip is really tiny, and I know, again, like I said, I'm not the only one with this issue, but still, the tail overall is really nicely done. And there's another part with the tail. So, yeah. So the articulation, it's pretty good, yes. And, of course, this Godzilla has gained the representation of most posable Godzilla in the SH Monsterarts line. And, yeah. So even though he's actually the most posable, well, I'm putting him back. This does risk the fact that he's one of the more looser Godzilla when it comes to articulation. I mean, articulation is still good, but with the risk of, with him being more thinner, it does sort of mean a looser articulation. But if you can get him in certain position, if I can, yeah, you can definitely get him in some really expressive poses. I mean, this definitely captures, how, he was in the movie. Godzilla was really flexible in the movie. He definitely did some really crazy poses, but, there are poses that aren't exactly the most goofy. They're just, more expressive and pretty much kick ass, honestly. So, if I can get him in another pose. More or less the feet out. Putting the tail back on. Oh, there goes the camera. Yeah. Yep. Most flexible Godzilla in the SH Monsterarts line. But unfortunately, also one of the more looser when it comes to articulation. So, articulation is still pretty good. In fact, it's one of the best in the lines. It's just, with the thinner material, you're definitely going to have to face, more loose articulation. So, yeah. So, I think with that being said, I think we can move on with the scaling with the figures. So, moving on to the size comparisons. Yes. So, I think we're going to kick it off with a bang so, of course, one of the main reasons why I bought this figure is with the crossover I'm doing, Godzilla versus Gamera, Defenders of the Boiling Isles. The crossover I'm doing with, Godzilla, Gamera, and the Owl House from Disney. Which, by the way, season 3 was Come on, Disney. We want a full season, but I'm not going to ramble on because it's about Final Goji. But here we have Final Goji, and of course, we got my Bandai 99 Gamera. Now, I was going to find the Monsterarts Gamera during this year's G-Fest, but I had no luck finding him, so kind of bummed by that, but I think the Bandai camera will have to do for now. So scaling them between them. So we have sort of different designs actually. So we got Gamera here who is a bit more bulkier and more heavier, while this Godzilla, he's a bit more thinner and leaner. But I think the two still look pretty good together, especially the photos I took on my old account. But thankfully I have photos on my Facebook page, so that's good. But yeah, so these two look really good. Yeah, I really love how expressive Godzilla can be. He can, try to intimidate Gamera. Try to fight him off. Yeah, I took similar photos like these on my old account. Still got them on Facebook still, but yeah, I think the two still look pretty good. Of course, Gamera is a lot bulkier. Godzilla's more thinner, like I said. And I will definitely prefer if I can get the Monsterarts Gamera 99 since, they're more or less in the same lineup. But, this will have to do for now. And, they still look pretty good next to each other, And of course, Godzilla is taller than Gamera, but I have no issue with that. I think, if the two were to be placed together, I think Godzilla would be taller. So, yep, pretty good there. So, getting Godzilla more upright here. If I can put him. So, yeah. So now let's compare him with what is actually still a favorite of mine, despite him being older and actually being one of the first Godzilla figures in my collection. And it is, of course, the Bandai Japan one. So, yep, this is the one, the 6-inch movie monster series, Final Wars Godzilla. And you can see how different these two are. Well, not exactly different. They're made for different toy figure companies. We got the Bandai one that is more or less a vinyl figure for kids, while this one is, of course, more or less an action figure for adults. But yeah, we can definitely see, how these two come far apart next to each other. And with this being, one of my very first Godzillas like ever. And it kind of shows, with all the custom paint I did on him with the spines, the nails, of course the tail kind of gone through a beater, especially with the broken tip. But yeah, so definitely interesting to compare the two. Same Godzillas, but kind of different design elements, particularly around the heads. This one has more of a thinner head than this one. And looking at them, so from what I recall, in terms of accuracy to the suit, I'm probably gonna say the Monsterarts, but just by a little bit. I think the Bandai Vinyl is still a really good figure. And in terms of my personal favorite, I think, damn it. I think both of them are still favorites of mine. In terms of, being, a more advanced and upgraded figure, I definitely go with the Monsterarts. But in terms of, nostalgia value and whatnot, the Bandai one definitely wins in that category. So, yeah, I'm still going to keep this guy in my collection. But yeah. So, interesting comparison between the two. So, yep, there we go. So now let's compare to another Monsterarts Godzilla in my collection. And it is, of course, as I mentioned before, the Monsterarts 2014 Spitfire. So, yep, so definitely interesting compared to, considering the fact that these two Godzillas came at almost a decade apart from each other. So, yeah, so really interesting comparison. We got, a more traditional Toho Godzilla with the new modernized, Hollywood Godzilla. So, and they definitely interesting to compare the two. And if I can bring out some other Monsterarts, of course, got Kiryu here, 2003. I can get him up. And of course, a more recently reviewed figure. It is, of course, Great Decisive Gigan. Actually, since, Godzilla and Gigan are part of the same movie, might as well put them alongside them one another. These two look great next to each other. I, of course, did my review of this guy. Please check that one out. So, yeah, so we got my 4 Monsterarts, the only Monsterarts I have right now. I don't really collect Monsterarts too often, considering how, how pricey they are, especially this one, which I will discuss later on. But yeah, so comparing Godzilla with Gigan here. I think they look pretty good. Gigan is definitely a bit, probably a little half an inch taller than Godzilla, but, no, I don't really have a big issue with that. So, especially, you can probably adjust the height with Godzilla, so he can probably be just a little bit taller than Gigan. But, yep, really no real complaints there. So, moving out Kiryu and 2014 here. I actually want to compare these. I actually want to bring out my other Final Wars figures. So here we got Rodan, obviously. Then Anguirus with the Bandai figure. Of course, these two are part of the Movie Monster series. Of course, we got the Bandai Creations or Bandai America Gigan. And here we got my custom Manda right here. So, and you know what? Why not we put Godzilla back here, the Bandai Japan one. So, yeah. And I do got the 2003 Bandai Mothra, but I don't really feel like getting her right now since, she's in a different area. Plus, I already compare with the other figures in my Gigan reviews, so please check that one out. But yeah, so we got a really nice display with Final Wars. So yep, of course not every single monster, but this is definitely a pretty decent sized Final Wars setup, I want to say. And actually, just for funsies, if I can leave out Anguirus and Rodan here. Here I got the Bandai America King Caesar. Even though this is the SHMA one and not the Final Wars one, you can still get, the iconic battle between these guys. And I think Godzilla scales really good with each of them, I want to say. So, yeah, really nice display options you got here. But, of course, I've saved the best for last. Final comparison we're going to do is, of course, with my more recent purchase and a glorious figure. Yeah, of course, you guys see my unboxing. It is, of course, the Bandai Kaiser Ghidorah. Yep. And this is definitely really awesome. And definitely accurate, too, considering how big Kaiser Ghidorah was in the movie. You got Godzilla roaring at his head, and depending on how you can recreate the scene of Kaiser Ghidorah biting down Godzilla, I think if you're fully flexible and know what you're doing when it comes to photography, taking photos with these guys, I think you can shoot that scene pretty well. And really awesome sizing. So yep, we got Kaiser and Godzilla together. Look really nice together, of course. Yeah, really, really awesome. So yeah, and I'm definitely excited to get that 4D Monsterarts Monster X coming. I'm definitely keeping my eye on that one for sure. So, yep, really awesome with Kaiser Ghidorah, and yeah, no real complaints here. So I think that's pretty much some of the basic things I have to say about this guy. So yeah, so like I said throughout this review, really nice detail. The sculpt is really well done. Captures the look of the suit fairly well. Articulation is really good. And the scale with the other figures, he definitely sizes them up really nicely with the other figures, especially in the Final Wars lineup. But of course, there are some issues that I have to address. Of course, the looser joints, they're definitely bothersome, especially for me, particularly the claws and the tip of the tail. The paint, as I said, the paint. The paint itself isn't necessarily a big issue, but it's really he can kind of contract some annoying specks here and there, some little dots, which is kind of annoying to me. And of course, there is the price of $90 for this guy, so almost $100 for a simple 6-inch Godzilla, who actually doesn't come with the accessories, and that's sort of another thing. Issue with the Monsterarts Final Wars is that he doesn't come with accessories. Should he have come with accessories? Yes, I think we can all agree with that. Maybe not exactly a beam. Maybe something with maybe the Gotengo. I think that would have been nice, but of course we didn't get that. And and I wouldn't be surprised within 2 years from now we'll be getting a repaint of this one. So yeah, and that wouldn't be surprising from Bandai, would it? But yeah, so $90, it's definitely a bit much, and if you're not exactly willing to pay it, I don't exactly blame ya. But if you're willing to pay the $90 for this guy, you won't regret it. I certainly don't. I still think this is a really fantastic figure, despite some of the issues I had to point out. Like I said, he's not a perfect figure, but to me, as a Final Wars fan, I think he is really nicely done. He, captures the look of the Final Wars Godzilla really nicely done. And, definitely really glad to have him. And he's probably the most photogenic Godzilla in my collection for sure, just because of how posable he is. Yep. Yeah, so, in terms of track record, most posable Godzilla in my figure, definitely this one, and you can kind of see why. Yeah, you can get him in the most kick-ass pose you can think of, mostly, if you could deal with the loose articulation. But yep, so, I think this review has gone a little too far enough, but, it is what it is. So, so thank you guys for watching. Sorry if I took a bit too many pauses here and there, but as a reviewer, I'm just gonna keep on reviewing to see how much I can improve. But this has been my review of Final Wars Monsterarts Final Wars Godzilla, my favorite Godzilla of all time, and that will probably be the main statement of mine for many years to come. So so thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.